We have some breaking news. Lamar Jackson, quarterback for the Ravens, has tested positive for COVID-19. This just coming into our NFL Total Access newsroom. We will bring in now Ian Rappaport, who has more on this story, has been over it since it broke. Ian, what more can you tell us about Lamar Jackson testing positive for COVID-19?
Well, MJ, several Ravens players over the past couple days have tested positive for COVID-19. The tally as of this morning was 8. That included several staff members as well as the Baltimore Ravens try to contain a coronavirus outbreak in their facility. I am now told by several sources that Lamar Jackson, the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, the former MVP, has tested positive for COVID-19, headed to the COVID-19 reserve list, which obviously for the Baltimore Ravens, who as of right now are still scheduled to play the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday, would mean they would need a new quarterback. And Robert Griffin III is their backup quarterback. He has obviously plenty of starting experience. He is someone who is a veteran, and he will now be called upon for emergency duty. And for the Baltimore Ravens, it has been a difficult and trying week as they attempt to control this virus inside their facility. They have disciplined a strength and conditioning coach for failure to report symptoms and for not always wearing a mask. This has been what their week has been about, and now it gets punctuated by their star quarterback, Lamar Jackson, testing positive for COVID-19.
In a very complicated, a very trying week for sure. As you mentioned, I want to bring in David Carr and Michael Robinson. I mean, we've been talking about this matchup. It was moved from today to Sunday. David, now them losing their starting QB because he tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, and this is a huge hit because there is not another offense in the entire league that is more closely tied to their quarterback. This offense runs through Lamar Jackson. Everything that they do is off of his ability to make dynamic plays with his feet. And then the play action comes, and then the throws come. But it is all from Greg Roman being brought in, John Harbaugh, what he was trying to build here. It was all tied to number 8 right there that you see on that screen. So for him not to be there, yes, you have veteran guys in the back. You get Robert Griffin can come in, he can do his thing, but there's no one that's as dynamic. So this offense is going to look vastly different with Robert Griffin jogging out there. And then it raises the question, how many more of those positives are going to be guys that are crucial to this football team having success on the field? So it's not just Lamar Jackson. There's other components that are in there. They've had the injuries on the offensive line. They're already going through a whole bunch of struggles. Now they're hit with this. It's something that everyone's having to deal with. The entire league's dealing with it. The entire Raiders defense was on the list last week, so those guys didn't get to practice. This affects guys during the course of their week, and they're used to being in a rhythm, in expecting, knowing what to expect day in and day out. If that's not the case, they're creatures of habit. It can really affect you. So they got a lot of work to do to try and replace that guy because he's obviously league MVP, and again, the entire offense goes through him. So big shoes to fill.
Well, and this also raises several questions, guys, including, does Lamar Jackson have symptoms? If he does not have symptoms, he could be back a minimum of 5 days. If he does have symptoms, you're looking at 10 days and another game missed. That is one thing, and so it's not just, okay, he's out for Sunday's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a huge game, obviously, for the reeling Baltimore Ravens, but how many more games is he out? And I think that's one thing, and it is not a perfect situation for the Ravens, far from it, but so much of 2020 has been about just making do with what you have, trying to adjust, trying to adapt, trying to win games amid a pandemic. And, this is a battle-tested, tough Baltimore Ravens team. They have been handed a tough one this week, and they have no choice but to somehow come out and play and try to make the best of it.
Yeah, Ian, it's going to be a little bit more pressure on that defense. Defense definitely is going to have to step up and put a stop to opposing offenses. But I do think having RG3 in the fold and having him be your backup quarterback, you don't have to totally abandon the offense. RG3 does have some of the same movement ability now. He's not a runner like Lamar Jackson is. He's a guy who can throw the football. He's a passer who has running ability, which is a little bit different. So he's not the type of runner that Lamar Jackson is. So I wouldn't run him on all of the same type of plays. But Ian, before we let you get out of here, I got to ask you this. what are you hearing from the Baltimore Ravens? Is there possibly any way that they could call Colin Kaepernick? I know that could be far-fetched, but I can't think of another quarterback on the streets right now that can step in and run that Greg Roman offense that has some wheels as a runner to be able to run the same offense so that the play isn't dropped off that much. Are you hearing anything about Colin Kaepernick in this particular conversation?
You know, I'm really not. And one of the issues here, it's not just do the Baltimore Ravens have interest in Colin Kaepernick. Remember, in the past they have. The most recent past, that's many years ago. I have not heard anything recently. But even if they did want to bring in Colin Kaepernick, you're talking at absolute minimum 6 days. So he would not be, remember, because the player has to pass through COVID-19 protocol, so he would not be in by this game, might be in somehow by the next game, and then at that point, theoretically, Lamar Jackson would be back. It's just to bring in a player so quickly during this COVID-19 season is difficult, and it certainly changes the way teams acquire players.
And guys, Rob, to your point about the difference between Lamar Jackson and Robert Griffin III there, the run ability can't even be compared. So, David, what, in your eyes, would be the expectation for RG3 stepping in here for Lamar Jackson?
You know what's funny about that, MJ? In that situation for RG3, having watched him over the last couple of years, when he steps in and he plays, he actually plays pretty well. And I've been in that situation where you're a starting quarterback, then you're relegated to a backup role, and you want that opportunity. And I guarantee you, Robert Griffin, although he's upset that Lamar's not going to be able to be there, they're probably boys, they're tight, they sit in the same quarterback room. He's ready for the challenge. Robert will play good football. I really believe that. He'll go in there. He'll make the throws that he has to make. And Rob alluded to it. He's a good passer. He can throw the football. He's seen a lot of defenses. He understands that. And I still think that he has enough leg ability, enough athletic ability to where if he has to pull it down and run, he can still utilize some of those runs. I think he'll play actually really well. I'm excited to see Robert get a chance to go out there and play again.
Well, and they
to be honest, David. No, go ahead, Ian. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about the near future. Let's talk about there's still, as of now, a game on Sunday. And yeah, I mean, we've been talking so much about the Baltimore Ravens and not having Lamar Jackson. What about the Steelers side of it? I mean, they're undefeated, and I know the players are frustrated, taking to social media, very upset that the game was postponed. Well, now they face the prospects of not having one of the best players in football on the field. I mean, for the Steelers, who all of a sudden, being undefeated is legitimately possible, and this game just got a lot easier for them. I mean, I hate to think about it that way, but there is a football aspect of it, and that's it. And so for the Steelers, I mean, they went from being frustrated that the game was pushed to Sunday to now facing a backup quarterback and several other backups along the way. Not a terrible situation just from a strictly football perspective for the Steelers.
Yeah, and then on top of that, who knows what this offense is going to look like with RG3. And I think that's a little bit of a disadvantage to the Pittsburgh Steelers preparing for this game, because what if the Baltimore Ravens come out and they decide that they want to throw the football? Because I truly believe that RG3 has a little bit more diversity in his throwing game, meaning he can throw a little bit more passes or a little bit more route combinations than I think Lamar Jackson can at this point in his career. But again, Ian, before we let you go, so let's be clear. The plan is for RG3 to start on Sunday?
That's the only possible plan for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, yes, that is the plan. He's the backup quarterback. But think about this. So you have Lamar Jackson headed to the COVID-19 reserve list. You have Robert Griffin III, who is their backup. And then they have a third-string quarterback, Trace McSorley, but he's also on the COVID-19 reserve list. He was placed there last week. So the only healthy quarterbacks that the Ravens have on the roster are RG3, who we know, and then Tyler Huntley. So, yeah, it is going to be RG3. As of now, again, the game is still on, and if it happens on Sunday as scheduled, it is certainly a difficult situation for Baltimore.
I'll get to what Ian mentioned right there about the Steelers side of it, right? Because as you're talking about this, M-Rob, them preparing for Lamar Jackson, what he can do with his legs. And not to say that they would sort of light up a little bit, because we know Mike Tomlin doesn't play these games. But something to think about here, we have seen teams go up against other teams and not know what to expect, and then boom, suddenly get dealt a W. So the dynamics here could shift quite significantly for both the Steelers and the Ravens now that Lamar Jackson has tested positive for COVID-19 and will not be on the field on Sunday. All right, we will get back to you guys in just a minute, but first I want to get back to everybody at home and the highlights from the game we just watched, Washington at Dallas. Of course, Cowboys strength and conditioning coordinator Marcus Paul, and for very touching and moving tribute to him. He was 54 years old. Let's get to game action in the first quarter. Washington trailing 3-0. Antonio Gibson takes the handoff there and rushes it in for the 5-yard touchdown. Washington takes the lead there 7-3. Listen, the Cowboys were riddled with injuries. The two most impactful there. Starting left tackle Cameron Irving was rolled up on early on in the game. 4 plays later, they also lost right tackle Zach Martin. Listen, everybody immediately saw what the impact of losing these two starting tackles had on this team. Jerry Jones very upset looking on from the suite. We go to the second quarter now. Andy Dalton looking to avenge their Week 7 loss where he left the game with a concussion, looking deep, and he finds who? It's Amari Cooper. 54 yards for the touchdown. That gave the Cowboys a 10-7 lead. I mean, incredible play showing off what he can do with his arm. Whew. Unbelievable. Later on in the second, game is tied at 10. Mike McCarthy is going to go for Andy Dalton. Throws outside to CeeDee Lamb, but it falls, and it is incomplete. Ronald Darby looks to get there low early, gets away with the potential PI there. But so it goes. This has been the story of the game. Ensuing Washington possession, 2nd and goal for the Cowboys 5. Alex Smith finds Logan Thomas for the 5-yard score. Washington leads 17-10 now. We go to the third quarter. Cowboys are trailing 17-13. Are we going to feed Zeke a little bit here? Yep, he rushes up the middle, initially ruled down, but the ball appears to come loose. Ron Rivera challenges that ruling. Zeke wasn't down, and the ball did come loose. It was reversed. So we go to later on in the third. Washington leads 20-13. Alex Smith pressured, throws over the middle, looking for Terry McLaurin. He is intercepted. Woo, the Jets are on for Jalen Smith. He returns the interception 43 yards before he is chased down by McLaurin there. I mean, the speed there. Terry McLaurin, by the way, trying to do his best DK Metcalf impression as we saw earlier in the season. Alex Smith cannot believe it. Ensuing Cowboys possession, 3rd and goal. Andy Dalton looking for CeeDee Lamb, but he drops it. Drops the potential game-tying touchdown. We saw him do incredible things last week right here. Did not make it happen. Andy Dalton not pleased. Fourth quarter now. Cowboys trail 20-16. It's 3rd and 3. Dalton can't find anyone, and of course gets zacked by Tim Settle this down. The Cowboys struggling, of course, to protect Andy Dalton, losing their 2 guys there. Next play, Cowboys in punt formation, 4th and 10. Go for the fake. Darian Thompson takes the snap, pitches it to Cedric Wilson, who doesn't even make it back to the line of scrimmage. It's the ensuing Washington possession. Next play, 1st and 10 from the Cowboys 23. Antonio Gibson rushes upfield for the 23-yard touchdown. Washington adds to the lead now, 27-16. This just keeps piling on. Later in the fourth, Washington leads 27-16. Antonio Gibson. Wow. 37-yard touchdown there, and they lead 34-16. Listen, this does not end well for Dallas, as you guys saw. Andy Dalton looking here, quickly gets pressured, tries to find Ezekiel and Elliott. What happens? Gets intercepted by Montez Sweat. It just piled on and on after that. Washington goes on to win this one, and now are in much better position. 41-16 the final. Let's go to Christina Pink, who caught up with Alex Smith after the game.
2 years ago, you missed this game and you were in a hospital bed on Thanksgiving. Could you put this game and this win, how much it means to you in perspective?
Yeah, really tough right now to do that. Thanksgiving has special significance, you know, for me and my family. It was 2 years ago when we found out about the infection, and I got rushed into emergency surgery, and you know, changed my life forever. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd be here 2 years later, full circle, and I'm so appreciative of so much and so thankful to be here, the opportunity to still be doing this and enjoying every minute of it.
Well, we are so happy to see your comeback. Fox Sports is making a $10,000 donation to the Capital Area Food Bank on your behalf. That is Washington's charity of choice. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
A very happy Thanksgiving indeed for Alex Smith and the Washington football team. We'll be right back with a lot more highlights, more analysis from the guys, of course. Oh, we are going to chat about this. My bad, guys. See, it's Thanksgiving Day. We're all full. You know that turkey hangover is a serious situation. Emram and David, Washington on a 2-game streak here. Emram, what impressed you most about that Washington win?
Well, first and foremost, MJ, DC, Alex Smith, man. He was my quarterback when I first came into the National Football League with the San Francisco 49ers. And to see him, kind of complete that circle. He got hurt. He talked about the infection just a few minutes ago. You saw him on that interview. And now to come out and get 2 games in a row, how phenomenal of a game as it was for Alex Smith. I mean, 19 for 26, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You have to know that it feels great to know that he has some type of redemption. He goes out there and he continues to win football games. But when I look at this game and this Washington football team, just how physical they were, guys. I mean, they won both sides of the line of scrimmage. Antonio Gibson rushed for 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. They were very physical at the point of attack, offensively and defensively. They got after Andy Dalton. I said it on our call, David. If the Dallas Cowboys could find a way to protect Andy Dalton, I think Dallas would come away with a win, but they didn't. 7 quarterback hits, 4 sacks later. The Washington football team, they go in there and they score 40. They do it in a big-time fashion.
Yeah, exactly what we talked about when we were chatting at halftime is what happened in the second half. They weren't able to protect Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has the ability. He has some guys on the outside. Amari was taking advantage of some of those looks on the secondary, but they just got after him. Pressure just built up. And then what I love about the Washington football team is defensively, they're tough and physical. They come after you. They just keep coming, and then they can run the football. And then you have a veteran quarterback, like you mentioned, Alex Smith. I was a teammate of Alex's also when we were out in San Francisco, and a fantastic human being, awesome guy. So happy for him to be back, but he's the perfect fit for this offense. Now, he can't do some of the things athletically that he was able to do, but they play tough, they play physical on the defensive side of the ball, and when you do that and you have a good run game, all you have to do is find completions. Now, you're not going to be dynamic, you're not going to wow teams, but if you can find a way to win this division, you can make people really nervous in the playoffs, having a tough front like they have, and then able to run the football, and then you got a veteran quarterback who's been there before. Alex has been there. He's been in the playoffs. He's been on good football teams. He understands what it takes, so I really like the makeup for these guys in the NFC East.
David, to your point, Alex Smith, he knows exactly what to do. He doesn't need to put all the bells and whistles, all the glitter and confetti as I would like to do, but he knows how to win and he knows how to not lose, more importantly. And that defense, yes, relentless out there. I loved it. Let's take a look at the NFC East standings because we knew whoever won this game was going to go into first place, and now that is Washington 4-7. Don't forget, though, that the Eagles, they still hold the key here. They have a big game against Seahawks Monday night. That tie there on their record is the one that gives them a little bit more muscle as we head into the rest of Week 12. All right, coming up, we will have a lot more about some questionable play calling in Dallas today. Could have also added to this loss. We'll be back with more NFL Total Access on Thanksgiving Day.
My name is DeAndre Hopkins with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm wishing you and yours a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, let's give you another recap here of Washington at Dallas. Alex Smith, first win as a starter in 742 days, was versus the Bengals last week. So we go to the third quarter, Cowboys trailing 20-13. Andy Dalton to CeeDee Lamb for the potential game tire there, but nope, he drops it. Not what we saw from him last week, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. Dalton very, very upset. Later in the fourth, Washington leads 27-16. Antonio Gibson takes the handoff up the middle, rushes for the 37-yard touchdown. Washington leads 34-16 at that point. All right, Cowboys trailing 34-16 up next. This is the first play of their next possession. 1st and 10, Andy Dalton quickly pressured here, tries to find Zeke. Instead, he's picked by Montez Sweat, who runs it back for the 15-yard touchdown. Washington wins it 41-16 is our final score. Alex Smith, 19 of 26 for 149 yards. After the game, Mike McCarthy talking about that questionable fake punt play call.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a big play opportunity the way you view it. There's certain things you look for tendency-wise on when and where, but it's obviously we didn't execute it, and as those things go, I mean, obviously it's ultimately my responsibility when particularly a play like that doesn't work. But we're trying to generate a big play at that point in the game. Prior, the information that you look for going into it, it was a solid call.
Mike, what has the last couple 24 to 48 hours been like for this team?
I think stating the obvious, extremely difficult. I mean, obviously with the passing of Marcus Paul, I mean, it was, a lot of heavy hearts, but I can't say enough about our football team, about our players, the way they came out, started the game, and, we had a number of adverse things to deal with throughout the game. We just, we didn't get it going to where we wanted to get it going in the second half. But you find out a lot about people in these times, and I can't tell you how proud I am as this football team. But yes, it's a week that I don't think any of us will ever forget.
Mike, can you also talk that there was that point in the late in the first half where you had the 4th and 1, a little bit less than 4th and 1, and the call there to throw the ball downfield, and what happened?
Oh, it was a clean matchup. Obviously, had one-on-one on the perimeter, and obviously the result wasn't what we were looking for. I think everybody's seen what happened on the play, but it's those are plays that you look to create opportunities, and it was a good play call, and we had one-on-one on the outside, and we just didn't convert.
All right, Michael Robinson and David Carr back with me. I mean, we're listening pretty intently to Mike McCarthy here, guys. Obviously, losing those 2 starting tackles out the gate, really, in the first quarter there. Very, very tough for Dallas to recover. But there were a lot of other things that went wrong. David, what did you really glean from what we saw from Dallas in this game?
Well, there's certain situations that stand out in every game, and the reasons why you lose football games. And you have a 4th and inches, you end up trying to throw the football. That obviously it could have been a quarterback sneak. Could have found a way to get that. You throw a 10-yard pass to CeeDee Lamb, a young wide receiver who, man, God bless him, loved to throw that pass, but maybe not in that situation. The fake punt, if it works, obviously, yeah, everybody loves the fake punt, but I mean, right here, you needed less than a foot. So, I mean, that's a tough one to swallow for me. CeeDee ended up dropping the ball later to tie the game, and then you go fake punt, and maybe it works. You go for the Philly, which you're actually a Cowboy, so how does that work? You can't run the Philly if you're a Cowboy. We've seen teams try that. There's a lot of questionable things that happened here, and I will say this, though. I know Marcus Paul. I knew Marcus Paul when I was with the Giants. He was an assistant strength coach there. Marcus Paul is one of the best human beings I've ever been around in a football locker room. So I can't imagine how difficult that is for the Cowboys to be able to physically and emotionally go out there and try to play that game. That's extremely difficult. But you kind of you go over the top of that when you start doing things that just make it even more difficult for your football team. And that's where you almost say, Coach, you got to help me out. And this situation, I don't know if the coaching staff helped those guys out.
Yeah, David. I mean, a lot of things that this team is going through. Obviously, the death of their strength and conditioning coach. Long week. They lost their franchise quarterback early in the season. They're not winning, and everybody expected Dallas to win this year. So, of course, this team is dealing with a lot. But when I look at the team and take an honest assessment of it, none of the players truly take ownership of their jobs and of the football team. See, all of the great teams, whether you're winning a championship or whether you're going deep in the playoffs, they take ownership of the team. You can't just make the excuse that, oh, well, the coach's scheme doesn't work, or, and finger point. That's woulda, coulda, shoulda type of football, and that's what losers do. So when you look at this football game, David, and you talk about throwing the football on 4th and 1, you talk about faking a punt in a critical situation of a game. What do you expect, man? The Dallas Cowboys aren't good this year. So the coaches have to do something outside of the box to try to generate something. 4th and 1. Ordinarily, we would have expected them to just line up behind that big offensive line, give it to one of the highest paid running backs in the National Football League, and getting a yard is easy. But now that offensive line isn't assembled that way anymore. There's a lot of injuries, and Ezekiel Elliott can't hold on to the football. So you know what you do? You go to your strength. Your strength is on the outside, and they just didn't make a play. So when I look at the Dallas Cowboys team, they're just upside down. They're just not very good right now. And again, they still have a chance. Even with all that I just said, they still have a chance to win the NFC East.
It's insane, you guys. You can say all of these things, and yet, and still, there is a potential possibility here where they could really pull it out. I love the part of the accountability, Emrod, because truly, as we've said before in the show, the NFL does not care. Of course, not to say we don't feel for folks in definitely in a 2020 season like this one, but once you get out on the field, it does not matter. All right, Emrod, David, thanks. Let's get you to our first game of Thanksgiving Day, Texans at Lions. Detroit trying to bounce back from last week's shutout loss. First quarter, Lions ball 7-0 lead. First and 10, Matthew Stafford chucks it. Nope. Intercepted by J.J. Watt. 19 yards for the touchdown for J.J. A couple of folks were talking smack on him. He says, happy Thanksgiving instead. Fourth quarter, Texans ball leading 34-17. Time for some trickery. Deshaun Watson hands it to Duke, sends it right back to him, and he launches it to a wide open Will Fuller. 34 yards for the touchdown. Texans win 41-25. Everyone celebrating, except for me. I left Fuller on the bench this week. Here's Watson.
When I called the play, Duke looked at me and was like, hey, if we got pressure, I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to pitch it back. So that's why he kind of carried the ball a little bit longer than what he's supposed to. And when he kept it, I just called him. I was like, hey, Duke. I was yelling his name. And he just turned around and threw it back to me. And I grabbed it, and I seen Will naked. So I got it to Will, and that's how it really happened. So he was really keeping it because that was the plan. If pressure, keep it. But I called his name, and he trusted me and pitched it back, and I just grabbed it and launched it.
I don't know the name of the play. He just told me that he was wanted to run a flea flicker, and I said, okay, let's go with it. And so he made the call, and then we executed the play.
Don't you just love Romeo Crennel? All right, the news of the day, though, Lamar Jackson out of Sunday's game against the Steelers on the COVID-19 list. After the break, what now, who now for the Baltimore Ravens? The top of the show, breaking news from NFL insider Ian Rappaport. Ravens starting quarterback and reigning league MVP Lamar Jackson tested positive for COVID-19. Jackson will not play Sunday against the Steelers. Ian says RG3 will start. The Ravens have been dealing with several players testing positive this week. Find more on this story on NFL.com. Larry Fitzgerald tested positive for COVID-19 as well. He will miss Sunday's game versus New England. Fitzgerald hasn't missed a game since the 2014 season when a sprained MCL ended his consecutive games played streak at 110. And Bears head coach Matt Nagy is not ready to name a starting quarterback for Sunday just yet. Nagy says they're still evaluating Nick Foles, who was injured in Week 10. Mitch Trubisky took full reps during practice today. Okay, so let's bring in Emrod and David after what we saw today and all of this going on with Lamar Jackson. What does this mean for the Ravens offense, David?
Well, no offense is as tied to one player, like we said earlier, than the Baltimore Ravens. Their entire offensive scheme is built around Lamar Jackson. Let's just be honest. So that's number one. You already have limitations on the offensive line. You had some guys retire, some injuries up front. Their run game's not what it was last year. And a lot more is asked of Lamar throwing the football and making plays and being dynamic with his legs. And there's only so much a guy can do. And now you don't have that guy. So now where do you turn? You turn to a veteran guy in Robert Griffin. And hopefully he can come in and do some veteran type things, make some throws. But there's no way you're going to replace this type of offensive production. Number 8's a special player. He's one of one right now in the league, and it's a big blow for the Baltimore Ravens. And this is not the week that you want to go try and see if your veteran quarterback can come in and save this thing, because this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team that's undefeated, that's already upset that they've had to deal with this. They're ready to play football, and it's going to be a tough ask for Robert Griffin to come in and fill the shoes of Lamar Jackson.
Absolutely, David. There's not a offense built more exclusively for their offense than the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And I know Lamar is a little upset, right? Because I know he wanted to kind of avenge that Week 8 loss against the Steelers from earlier in the season where they sacked him 4 times. He had 4 giveaways, and his completion percentage was under 50. So I know he was excited about going out there and showing the Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit of what he has. But at the end of the day, I do think the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be okay with RG3, Robert Griffin III, just simply because, yes, he still has some movement ability. No, he's not the runner that Lamar Jackson is. Lamar Jackson is a runner with passing ability. RG3, he's a passer with a little running ability, so it is a little bit different. I don't expect a lot of designed quarterback runs running RG3 in between the tackles, maybe still read option, keeping him on the outside so he can have an out and get out of bounds and slide and all of those things. But throwing the football, this is what I do think that Lamar was a little bit behind in this year. Defenses that started to catch up with him a little bit, keeping him in the pocket and forcing him to throw the football out of the well. Dave, you know exactly what I'm talking about. RG3, he's a little bit better in throwing the football out of the pocket. And to me, he has a little bit more Rolodex of throws than a Lamar Jackson has at this point in his career.
I know we're talking about how focused they are in centering this offense around Lamar Jackson, but I have to imagine that in a season like this, like 2020 has dealt us with so many audibles literally being called every week for teams, that the Ravens have to have a plan where they know that RG3 can come in and step in. Of course, it's not the scenario they want, but you got to believe that teams like this, especially of the caliber of the Ravens, have to be prepared for this type of scenario. Okay, Rob and David, we'll come back with a lot more on this. Accepting responsibility for something that happened is often referred to as facing the music. After the break, I bet Andy Dalton wishes he was facing music and not questions. We'll listen in on Andy facing the press after the break on NFL Total Access. Dallas. Okay, I remember last week when Alex Smith won against the Bengals. That was his first win as a starter in 742 days. Third quarter, Cowboys trailed 20-13. Third and goal, Andy Dalton looking for CeeDee Lamb there. Nope, he drops it. He could not come down with it. Oh, very unfortunate there. Andy Dalton not pleased in that play. Later in the fourth, Washington leads 27-16. It's Antonio Gibson who takes the handoff right up the middle, rushes upfield. That's a 37-yard touchdown. Washington leads 34-16. Woo! Good job for Gibson. Not happy. Mark McCarthy. Cowboys trailing 34-16. First play of their next possession, Andy Dalton was pressured, trying to find Ezekiel Elliott, but instead, you saw what happened there. Picked by Montez Sweat. Washington with a 40-burger, 41-16 the final score. They improved to 4-7 and are in first place in the NFC East. Here's Andy Dalton after the game.
Yeah, you know, I think we were in this game. The score, I mean, it got out of hand at the end. But, you know, I felt like we were in a good place. I felt like we played with that first half. I thought we played well. We played hard, and we had everything in front of us. And then, you know, we weren't able to get it done in the second half, and that's frustrating because we were in this game and felt good about it. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like we were in a good place, but we can't let the game end the way it did.
All right, guys, as we talked about a little earlier, the Cowboys really not taking advantage of that edge that they did have on the outside there, plus injuries. But David, really, that Washington defense was all over the Cowboys today.
Yeah, that's what's difficult. You have advantage on the outside, and you want to take advantage of that, but what you see from the Washington football team is a defense that stays on the attack, and I love that. And what you'll see in these two plays that we're about to show is a team that can get to you with force, so they feel like there's chum in the water, for lack of a better term. You got some injuries up front, so what do? You send your guy, Chase Young, straight ahead, run right over the left tackle, use your physical ability to just go after the quarterback. And you can do that in many different ways with him. You just let him go, play coverage on the back end, fantastic. And we get it. Look, he can't block me. He knew it, right? And then you can also get up there and disguise and confuse an offensive line that's struggling, that has some guys out. And so you get up there, you mug up, you pull a guy out, you take away the crossing route, boom, the pocket collapses, and you still got Chase Young in there, you got Payne in there, you got guys. And that front is vital to the success of this Redskins team. If they think they're going to go win the NFC East, and they do have a chance, that front has to play that way every day.
David, they controlled the line of scrimmage. I mean, they totally, especially that defensive front, they took the offensive line of scrimmage and put it 5 yards back into the backfield of Andy Dalton. I mean, hell, they held Ezekiel Elliott to 32 rushing yards, one of the top running backs in the National Football League. They totally shut him all the way down. And then offensively, they ran the football well as well, right? You talk about Antonio Gibson, over 115 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. They played a physical brand of football. Now, you know, the NFC East, they're not playing great football right now, but whoever plays the more physical football, and then you have a quarterback like Alex Smith, Alex is not going to turn the football over. You could get mad at, he's not going to take the chances down the football field that maybe other quarterbacks will, but he's not going to get you beat, David. He's not going to turn the football over and make bonehead mistakes. You run the football like that, you control the line of scrimmage defensively. I'm telling you, they can win the NFC East. I'm talking about the Washington football team.
Guys, if you stay poised, you gain points. But there was also a lot of Jedi mind tricks going on out there. And one of the trick plays Washington used tonight had some unusual inspiration for Coach Ron Rivera.
Oh, man.
Where's the genesis for that play? Where did you guys, did the roots go back to the Fumble-Rooski, or where did that start?
It actually goes back to a movie called Little Giants, okay? And it's called, I hope I don't get in trouble, but it's called The Annexation of Puerto Rico. We nicknamed it the Bummerooski so that, because most of these guys don't understand it, so we had to explain to them who Bum Phillips is, and we did it in tribute to him as term of the Bummer.
Ron, there is a rumor out there that you've watched The Little Giants over 100 times in your life, so I guess you like the movie The Little Giants? I did. You know, when you have kids at that age, Courtney, my daughter, loved the movie, so we watched it a lot.
I'm going straight home to watch Little Giants after this. The best part is watching you guys react to his inspiration there, David.
I love that and then they ran it against the Cowboys. That's the best part because it pairs perfectly with the movie. Yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, why not? Oh, my gosh, I love that. That's so good by Ron Rivera. Love it.
Yeah, it was awesome. But you know what, guys? I don't hate to be a bearer of bad news. When teams got a result to plays like the annexation of Puerto Rico, when they got a result to that, they're not playing great football. I've just got to be honest with you guys. I mean, I just got to be honest. So, great play, but not great football.
But listen.
A lot of trick plays today.
The best part is that Ron had to preface that by saying, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. No, man, you won the game. You're not going to get in trouble. You're fine. All right, guys, thanks for that. The games of Thanksgiving done and dusted. But the game of the week, well, that's still to come. We've got your viewer's guide to defending champ Pat Mahomes facing off against 6-time champ Tom Brady. The game is Sunday. The prep course is
again against the Raiders. Why not? Mahomes to Kelsey. Snap to Brady. Close toward the end zone. Ball, Mike Evans. Cut back left run. It goes to Edwards-Helaire. CEH with TD1. Allowed to the end zone. Gronkowski with a touchdown. And that New England combination now in Buccaneer pewter and red. Near side, Tyreek Hill catches the ball at the 5. Touchdown, Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is carrying him off the field.
Michael Robinson and David Carr back with me. All right, Patricio y Tomas. So Mahomes and Brady. That is our total access game of the week, you guys. So many matchups in this one there's endless combinations, I find. But what matchup are you looking forward to the most, David?
Well, when I watch the Chiefs play, it's a lot to handle. You really have to focus on the shifts and the motions because Andy Reid brings a lot to the table with those guys. So if you're going to do that and you have a young defense like the Bucs do, they have some veteran guys up front. When you talk about the linebacking core, Devin White, and in the secondary, some young guys there. As soon as that fly motion happens, we talked about this earlier, and Rob, about 4 or 5 guys got to communicate. They got to talk. They got to figure out what's going on. And while that's happening, you got guys going vertical up the field, and you got the best quarterback in the league as far as throwing the ball down the field. And Pat Mahomes eyeing your defense down. So yes, they're a talented defense. Yes, they're fast. But man, these shifts and motions, they'll get you.
Yeah, David, the shift in motions, what it does to a defense, it forces the defense to pause just for a second, you know what I mean? And it definitely slows the thought processes up. But for me, the matchup I'm looking across that Kansas City defensive front. Defensive tackle Chris Jones leads the team in sacks with 5.5 sacks, 18 quarterback hits. his matchup against the center and the two guards of the interior offensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Over the last few weeks, Tom Brady has been harassed. He's been hit, and he's been off throwing the ball deep down the football field. If they can control Chris Jones, keep him at the line of scrimmage, maybe they can start to hit some of those deep passes down the football field to Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, but we'll see.
Guys, yesterday we were talking about this matchup, and I mentioned supporting cast, right? I'm looking at it again now, listening to these matchups. It doesn't have to be a supporting cast. On both of these teams, we have a long list of co-stars, superstar players, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So we should see fireworks really going all the way down to the fourth quarter. Guys, thank you. It may have been the play of the game. Terry McLaurin chasing down Jalen Smith to prevent a Cowboys touchdown. Dallas came away with the only 3 points. We came away with the whole story from Terry himself. That's next on NFL Total Access. All right, Jalen Smith picked off Alex Smith in the third quarter, and it looked like he was headed for the end zone. But then what happened? Wait a minute, Terry McLaurin raced him down. It was one of the turning points of the game for Washington. Listen to Terry himself.
That play, I actually thought I was going to be free on the route, actually, and then I saw the ball intercepted, and I was in range, and I was like, man, I can run him down. And then, I just saw me and him, and then Van Der Esch got in my way, but he didn't get enough of me. I'm like, I can still run him down. And I know Jalen Smith personally. He's a fast guy. So, I just wanted to keep playing to the whistle blew, and our defense made a great stop off of that play and help propel us going forward.
And McLaurin, of course, taken to Twitter right after the game saying, never quit, great team win. He also then he texted DK Metcalf after DK had his crazy pick six saving tackle, and that it was ironic that he had a similar play. But in the end, he's Terry McLaurin. He's going to do whatever it takes every single play to win the game. All right, guys, that will put a button for us on Thanksgiving Day. So let's look ahead to Sunday. Plenty to watch there. What's your matchup to watch, M-Rob?
I'm looking at the Arizona Cardinals going to New England Patriots. I want to see if Stephon Gilmore will shadow DeAndre Hopkins. Should be a great matchup, David.
I'll make it really easy for you. Stay in the same game. I want to watch Bill Belichick try and figure out Kyler Murray because no one on the league's been able to figure it out. You come in, you say, oh, they're going to be able to squeeze the pocket, and he still finds ways